What's up, guys? Danny and Kobashi here from the Cast, and I'm holding my kittens a little bit tighter because I just got done watching episode 2 of Midnight Mass on Netflix. Okay, I'll let you go down. And if you watch the first episode, you know how it ends, and episode 2 picks up right at that beginning. Very very hard episode to watch if you are an animal lover. I'll throw the spoiler warnings up there. 3, 2, 1. Okay. If you're a pet lover, this is the episode you might want to skip. Not only does it start with the cats washing up on the shore and all the dead animals there, but then there's a very sad scene later on involving a dog, which I know instantly drives a lot of people away. So, gutsy jump from Mike Flanagan there. Before I get knee-deep into this review, Pete and I decided, because we love Mike Flanagan so much, our channel's name is The Lasser Cast, taken from the Lasser Glass from his film Oculus. Because we're such big fans of Mike Flanagan, we wanted to take this show step by step, go through it kind of piece by piece, not just binge through it. If you want to watch full series overviews, there are plenty of those out there on YouTube. If you want to take things a little bit slower, you can hang out with us here at the Lasser Cast. And why don't you give our video a like? Why don't you subscribe to our channel if you haven't? Share the video if you can. It really helps us out. We've only been around for a year. We started our channel during the pandemic, but we have some pretty exciting stuff coming up. Pete just interviewed prolific author Joe Lansdale. That interview's up on our channel. We have an interview coming up later this week with Bird Box author Josh Malerman. Phenomenal interview. He gave us a lot of time. That's coming up on our channel later this week. And you can watch Pete and Sherry's review of episode 1 of Midnight Mass right now. So I'm going to get into episode 2. And I am going to talk spoilers. I'm going to talk theories. I'm going to talk characters. And, you can tell me in the comments if you think I'm way off. Or you could just tell me your theories. Of course, don't spoil it for me. I just finished episode 2. So if you're going to say, Danny, your theory is stupid because this is what happens, please don't do that. I want to enjoy this show, and somehow, some way, I have avoided spoilers so far. So, episode 1, you have Crockett Island. And this instantly reminded me of, I know Pete and Sherry mentioned a low-budget, kind of a horror sci-fi movie that came out called Block Eye on Sound. And this definitely has that kind of a vibe. It also kind of reminded me of the Mortuary Collection, with just like this kind of, ocean, fisherman village kind of small community that's, you have to take a ferry to get there. And the new priest at the church is Hamish Linklater. Plays Father Paul, and he brings with him this giant box that appears to be full of dirt. And if you're a horror fan, that is like instant red flags right away. And there's these 3 teenagers that sneak off in episode 1 to this part of the island that's almost completely submerged, and that's where all the cats live. And you see this kind of weird cloaked figure with just kind of glowing eyes, and there's no way for me to not think this is a vampire. And I don't know where this is going. I haven't watched episodes 3 and on yet, but there's more stuff in this episode 2, that leads me to think, whenever I see a giant box with dirt, I instantly, whether it is Salem's Lot, whether it is The Strain, which was a great series, whether it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, big boxes full of dirt. My wife and I are watching What We Do in the Shadows. big boxes full of dirt equal vampires. So is there a vampire now on Crockett Island? I don't know. I kind of am leading in that direction. There are some things in this episode that do kind of lead me down that path. There's the scene where this drug dealer goes into this like shady house. This giant figure comes and swoops down on him and kills him. Well, we assume he gets killed. There's also this great shot where the camera just zooms up and flies and glides over the island. It almost looks like a shot from Beetlejuice when you're going over. They have like the map of the whole town, and you're flying kind of over it. That's what it reminded me of. Except it's very obvious you're following some kind of winged creature. And again, is it vampires? I don't know. There is in episode 1 when Riley, the main character, or one of the main characters, Riley, comes home, played by Zach Gilford. He goes into his old bedroom and he has a stack of Stephen King books. And very prominently in the middle of that stack of Stephen King books is Salem's Lot. And we know Mike Flanagan loves Stephen King. We know that he has a very positive working relationship with Stephen King. He has done Gerald's Game and Dr. Sleep. So, yeah. Is it a Salem's Lot situation? I guess we'll find out. I do want to talk about a couple of characters that I think are really very interesting. Riley, to me, is kind of he's an okay lead. I like the contrast, obviously, about him being a recovering alcoholic, a recovering inmate who served 4 years for a drunk driving accident where he killed a young girl. And I liked his kind of agnostic, atheistic view in sharp contrast with this obviously very religious island. You have Bev Keane, played by Samantha Slayan, who was in Hush, and she is just giving off Marcia Gay Harden in The Mist vibes. I think Miss Carmody was her name in that movie. I'll never forget, and spoilers for The Mist, which is another Stephen King adaptation, when she dies in that movie, the theater I was in gave like a standing ovation. Like, I've never seen a human character in a movie that was more hated than Miss Carmody in The Mist. And I'll never forget that, being in that movie theater and hearing the crowd like cheer like it was the end of Avengers Endgame when she got shot and died. But Bev Keane is very close. She is on that Mrs. Carmody level, that the devout religion that becomes almost fanaticism. And to me, that's always one of the scariest things. I can't really identify empathetically with any of these characters just because of my complete lack of faith. I'm in full disclosure, I'm born Jewish, I'm bar mitzvahed, so even if I was religious, I wouldn't be the church-going type. But I really, aside from weddings and funerals, I don't usually go into houses of worship. We have a very, we're not a very religious family, and that's fine. I think that partly it's what allows me to watch a show like this and be more open-minded about what's going on. You have a Muslim sheriff, played wonderfully so far by Rahul Kohli, and him and his son in the first episode, they're shown praying, and they talk about how they take the ferry on Fridays to go to mosque. And meanwhile, the mayor of the town is like, oh, well, you should, oh, that's great. If you're at mosque on Friday, that's great. You should come to church on Sunday. And it's like, you kind of roll your eyes at those types of people, and they exist in any religion. Every religion has their zealots and their fanatics, and people like Bev Keane in this show gives off that really creepy vibe, especially as we talked about earlier with the scene involving the dog. I don't think it's a surprise. I actually went back and rewound it, and the dog, right before it eats the hot dog, you do see Bev Keene's dress putting the hot dog down. So, I mean, that's terrible. I do like the relationship between Riley and Erin, played by Kate Siegel, phenomenal actress, married to Mike Flanagan, his muse, from everything from Hush to supporting roles in pretty much everything else. She was the Lady of the Lake in Haunting of Bly Manor, and just absolutely killed it in her episode. And she's great here. I love their little relationship. I love her little relationship with the doctor on the island, played by Annabeth Gish. I really like Robert Longstreet, who, another Flanagan regular, as the town drunk, who is responsible for Lisa, played by Anara Seymour, who she's in a wheelchair, and that leads us to how this episode ends with this great scene in the church where Father Paul, Hamish Linklater, doesn't give her the wafer, the body of Christ. He holds it away from her, and everybody starts to turn on him like, Father, what are you doing? You're embarrassing her. That's so mean. Why would you do that? And we start to see the first miracle take place. There's also another curious scene earlier where Riley's mom, who wears very thick eyeglasses, almost has a Peter Parker moment where she is seeing with her eyeglasses and you're seeing kind of blurry, and then she takes the eyeglasses off and she sees perfectly. And what we've seen in this episode is not everybody in this very religious island community goes to church every Sunday. There's this phenomenal scene where Father Paul greets everybody around Easter, and the church is full. And he said, you don't just have to come on Easter and on Christmas. You could come every Sunday. My door is always open. And he goes into this incredibly passionate sermon talking about the Psalms, which is the name of this episode, Book 2, Psalms. And he goes into this great sermon. And it reminded me of another Stephen King work that Mike Flanagan's name was attached to a little bit, at least at first, and that was Revival, which, oh my God, I would love a Flanagan adaptation of Revival, because I think that's right in his wheelhouse. And I'll tell you something, Hamish Linklater, he could play Charlie Jacobs in that, Reverend Charlie Jacobs. I think he'd be fantastic. But there's that great scene, and but then after that, the church is full, and then the next time you see the church, it's just Lisa, the girl in the wheelchair. It's just Riley's mom, and that's it. And they're the two that are starting to maybe sense the miracles. Riley's mom's vision is improving, and of course the big climactic moment of the episode where Lisa stands up and her parents are hysterical crying, and everybody who's in the church. That day in the church, it was Lent, so the church was kind of packed again. There's another great scene between Father Paul and Riley where they're kind of hosting a one-on-one AA meeting. And things get really intense as Riley digs into his past. And I got to bring up, I love Riley every time he goes to bed. Flanagan shows us the same scene over and over and over again of he lays down in bed, the bed starts to tilt, and Riley, and you start to see the flashing lights in his eyes, and then boom, you get the kind of the jump scare inset of the girl that he murdered, the girl who he killed with his car when he was drunk. And you kind of get these visions of him, you know, alone on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And it makes me think that, like, that's how he feels. You know, he seemed to be like the one who was going to get away from this island. They talk about how he went to Silicon Valley, and I think he was in Chicago, and he was basically successful, and he had escaped this island. And he calls, you know, he very similar to Dr. Sleep, and the main, you know, Ewan McGregor's character, Danny Torrance in Dr. Sleep, the recovering alcoholic who continually sees the visions of his past mistakes. You know, these are Flanagan tropes that continually come up in his work. This being a very personal work, you know, it kind of clues you into some of the stuff that he, you know, maybe has gone through. And it's, I'm really looking forward to see where these characters go and how they play out. But there's definitely something afoot on this island. I don't want it to be vampires. I think that's kind of like a, I don't want to say it's a cheap way out, but it's like vampires on an island is, you know, something that I feel like between Salem's Lot and The Strain, and, you know, we've seen things like that before. I do like the idea of, I like the way it's being shot. I mean, I love the way he films Hamish Linklater and Zach Gilford during this intense one-on-one AA scene where they're never on camera directly. They're always kind of off to the side. And I like the way that was filmed. There's another scene at the very beginning on the beach where Michael Trucco, who plays the mayor, is just following Sheriff Hassan down the beach, and the camera doesn't break. The camera is like rotating around them as the conversation goes with no edits. And of course, if you watched Haunting of Hill House, you'll know one of the greatest episodes to me in like TV streaming history is, I believe it's episode 6, where it's almost entirely one long cut for about a half hour. And so that's another thing that Flanagan does, that he's, you know, the Flanagan tropes that he has, you know, built into his repertoire in his amazing 10 plus year career at this point. And yeah, as soon as I'm done filming, I'm probably going to watch episode 3 before I go to bed, because now that I'm talking about it, I'm really looking forward to seeing. I mean, that last episode was brilliant. Episode 1, I thought was a fine way to start. I totally understand it going a little bit slow and a little bit exposition-y for all of these new characters, because you're basically meeting not just a family or not just a group, you're basically meeting an island. Whereas this episode, we have our core characters, and now we are getting into the meat and potatoes. We're kind of starting to see the sinister side of this island, what lurks in plain sight with like Bev Keane, the religious fanatic, what lurks in the shadows, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm going to try to watch a little bit more before it gets spoiled. But what did you think of episode 2 of Midnight Mass? Go watch it on Netflix. Leave a comment below, like, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and Pete and Shari and I will be back with more reviews of episodes 3 through 7. And then we're going to kind of do a wrap-up where we rank the 3 Mike Flanagan Netflix series: Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and of course Midnight Mass. This one is doing pretty damn well so far. I'm enjoying it through 2 episodes, and I'm going to go watch more right now. So this has been Danny from The Last Cast, and I'll see you very soon.